South Florida, and it's going to be very informal. You know, I want to hear, you know, questions and things that you want to know about, you know, the IT industry and the future and what's coming up, and I'm going to kind of give you an idea how I got here. I've been doing this for over 20 years, but we've actually been in business almost 19 years. So I'm originally from here. I went to Wellington Elementary School. I graduated from Wellington High School in '91. I ended up going in the Army, and I was like the old guy. I didn't end up going in the Army until I was 25. And you know, I went in the Army and I was in telecommunications. So you take the ASVAB, you get a good score, and I had a whole list of jobs that I could have done in the Army. And I said, well, you know what, telecommunications, technology, I'll probably do that. So I did that and spent 4 years in the Army, went to Special Forces training, jumped out of planes, up at Fort Bragg, and then I got out after my 4 years and then started into the IT industry because I saw what was happening. The telecommunications side of things was starting to converge with the local area network. You know, so a lot of the telecoms needed the people on the street to, you know, do stuff inside the offices. So you know, when I got out of the Army, I went right to work for an ISP or a telecommunications carrier, like AT&T, or now Comcast is doing stuff like that. But this company was called US Lec. They were out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So right after I got out of the Army, a buddy of mine calls me up and says, hey, I got this resume, you know, on my desk, and he was a recruiter, and he ends up calling me up and saying, hey, listen, I know you're working right now, but you need to be on a plane to Knoxville, Tennessee, to, you know, for this new company called US Lec. And I'm like, all right, I'll do that. So I quit my job, you know, right after I got out of the Army. I was working at Costco, went and started working for US Lec, and I worked for US Lec for about almost 4 years until they laid me off, because I was an engineer and I should have stayed up in Charlotte, North Carolina, but I ended up moving back here and I worked remotely. And being part of that corporate network, they really wanted me to be in Charlotte. So they kept threatening me that, hey, we're going to have to lay you off, we're going to have to let you go. And the day came and they let me go, and that was the day I started IT Solutions. I come home, my wife's in the backyard with my two babies, and she's like, what are you doing home at 2 o'clock? I'm like, they just laid me off. We got to work and started IT Solutions in South Florida that day. I actually incorporated that day, and it's been, you know, it's been a steady progress to where we are today. So you're looking at almost 19 years, and the industry has changed, you know, a lot. I mean, when you know, when I got married, my wife brought a computer up to Fayetteville, North Carolina. I'm like, how do you turn this thing on? You know, and I had no idea. So I ended up working on this thing with Windows 95, and I was just infatuated with it. I mean, it was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I had to wake her up at 2 o'clock in the morning. How do you turn this thing off? You know, because I was just so involved and just enthralled with computers and the technology. And you know, after you know, time went on, you know, I went to PC Professor, and I started getting some certifications, and you know, because I wanted to have that progress. And you know, we started out with just me. I was a one-man operation with my wife. She kind of did the scheduling, and then I started getting software to try to make things better. And I had no idea where I'd be today. You know, I just kind of went through the day by day, to kind of get to where we are today. And now I've got 25 employees. You know, we're one of the leading managed services provider here in Florida, and let alone South Florida. So, you know, we've done a ton of stuff. We've got clients, you know, Palm Beach Zoo, South Florida Fair, Sunfest, the brand, Polo. You know, what we do is we do IT management. And so instead of somebody hiring an IT guy full time on staff, what they do is they contract us, and we take care of all the IT management, from computers to hanging TVs to running cables. And we are the IT department for all the companies that we service. Now, we're kind of a boutique MSP. We don't just take any clients. They have to kind of fit our box. And this is part of the thing, you know, learning as an entrepreneur, what kind of clients do I want? You know, because we've had bad clients that drove us crazy. And we finally got to a point where we just fired them, you know. very hard to get to that position in like as a business to be able to go, you know what, you're just not fit for us anymore. We're moving on, and we end up firing the clients. But we try to get good clients to where they fit our box, because standard operating procedures and processes and systems that need to be in place, they're very, very important, because the goal is we're not a nonprofit. We're a for-profit company, and the goal is to increase those margins through technology, and we bring those things to the table for our clients. We try to bring processes and our culture as well to a lot of the companies that we support, and it's a big deal for what we do. Now we got cybersecurity and all these different things that are happening in the industry, and we have to get people that can do these kind of jobs. It's a lot. I mean, you think about Facebook and all these different platforms that are out there that have to be managed. Now you got shadow IT, and we've got to have something in place to counter that. And so there's a lot of things that we have to try to stay cutting edge to bring these kind of services to our client base. But it's pretty cool. We're always learning, and it's always changing. So this is kind of where we are today. Where we're going to be 5 years from now, there's no telling, because technology just changes constantly. But we're always trying to stay bleeding edge of it. So it's a lot of fun. You guys are heading down the right road. Technology's not changing. We're actually a recession-proof industry. So the recession doesn't affect us, because companies need IT regardless. They have to have their IT, and they can't just let us go. Hey, we're just going to try to cut costs and let IT go, because what are they going to do? All it takes is crypto getting in one time and locking down a network, and you're talking, depending on the company, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars a month just by being down. So we put things in place to prevent that stuff. So it's really fun. But I wanted to open it up, very informal, because I'm sure you guys have questions, and I want to answer any questions that I can for you guys, and let you know what's coming down the road for you guys if you guys choose to stay in this industry. So definitely, I want to open it up. Any questions for me that I can answer?
When you first incorporated, what were you planning on doing? What was your goal by incorporating the name?
When I first incorporated, I just wanted to survive, because I mean, it's a school of hard knocks. I mean, I have no college degree, no MBA. I mean, military was my education, school of hard knocks. And when I incorporated, I learned a lot of it off Google. I Googled my way to where I am today. So it was when I incorporated, I'm like, we're just going to take it to the next level. And then I had to surround myself with people that were better than me. And I always had mentors in the industry, from the different software that we purchased to help run our business, talking to CEOs of other companies. And, I was scared to hire my first guy. I'm like, how am I going to afford that guy? How am I going to afford it? Now here we are, 25 people deep with and now it's like, but we're doing a lot more, and so incorporating is, you have to do those things. You got to cross your T's, dot your I's when you go to incorporate, because it's the legalities of all that stuff. But yeah, you got to do that stuff.
How did you get initial funding when you first started out?
Grassroots, no funding, no credit cards, no nothing. We just went. I made money, put it in the bank. Made money, put it in the bank. And we for 18 years, we never have borrowed. Now we just bought a building, and this is the only time we've ever borrowed. So it was like, there was no funding, we didn't go ask for money. It's just grassroots, boom, and that's how we did it. So it's a very hard way to do it, but I didn't know any better. I'm like, hey, you get money, you put it in the bank, you pay bills, and that's how I did it.
How did you land your first client, and what was that?
I was handing out flyers, residential. Started in residential, handing out flyers, doing, installing routers, and then I got an opportunity to do it. One of my neighbors worked for a company. She's like, hey, we could use, some help with, IT. I went over there, and I'm staring at the server, and I'm going, oh man. So I just Googled everything that was wrong to kind of learn. And but I was like the only guy for 4 years, and then I started hiring. And, but I learned a lot off Google, and I educated myself, Like I said, no formal training at all. I just persevered. I had all kinds of challenges, but I knew that once I started getting into companies, there's more liability there. So I had to force myself to change. And now we only take companies. We don't do any residential at all. We have a certain amount of users, from 25 users up to 200 users. So we're managing probably 2,500 endpoints right now across 50 clients. So I'm not one of those companies that has 200, 300 clients. We've got 50, but we got 50 great clients. So that way we're not losing our minds every day because of a fire. Something's happening. So.
How do you determine the criteria for who you want to be your client?
Or who I want to be my client? Well, they have to kind of match kind of what we do. We have a box that we fit in at IT Solutions. And what we have to do is we try to get clients to fit our box. Now, sometimes they'll go out, but the goal is to be efficient through technology. And that's part of our selling point is like, look, you can buy all the technology in the world, but if you're not efficient through technology, then what's the point? You're throwing money out the window. It's like Office 365. It's a platform that, yeah, people are used to Word, Excel, Outlook, but there's so many more things to that platform that people just don't use. So what we do is we educate them. There's an education arm for IT Solutions. So we don't just implement it and say, good luck, send us a check. No, we're training you because we're going to increase their bottom line. Because if they're making money, guess who's making money? So that's our goal as well. Yes, sir.
So going to this field and others around it, like computer science and IT, what kind of experiences and also what do you recommend we study in order to successfully pursue?
Well, cybersecurity is the big up and coming thing. We've interviewed probably in the last year over 200 people, and what we found is a lot of the people are like, just got my college degree, I need $100,000. I need $100,000 a year. I just got my college degree and in computer science, and this is what I think I'm worth. And that's not what we're looking for. Look, we can teach IT and technology all day long, but if you don't fit our culture, that's a big problem. We've had people, and this is part of that school of hard knocks. We think somebody looks good on a resume. People lie on the resumes. They bring them in, we bring them in, and then all of a sudden it's like, what the heck? This guy isn't matching what's happening. We just let a guy go. He was an IT guy, internal IT guy. We took over the Girl Scouts of South Florida, and he was an internal IT guy, and we ended up trying to do them a favor, saying, hey, look, we're gonna retain this guy for you. Well, I didn't know that he was very introverted. We'd have a company meeting, and we call it Thirsty Thursday. Everybody grabs a beer, we hang out, we talk about stuff that's going on in the company, and he would just sit behind his computer with his back to everybody and just working on his computer. It's like, what's going on? You're not a culture fit. He was gone in a month. So it's just one of those things that just because you think that you know this kind of stuff, it's like you got to be able to fit and get in with people. It's not just what you know in technology. I mean, we had a guy, 30 years of technical knowledge, but he couldn't interact with our staff. We had to let him go. So it's good that you guys, education's important, but you gotta understand how to interact with people. Dress to impress. Be outgoing. Be involved with your team. Because you're gonna have these. These are some of the things that you can't teach. Those soft skills. You gotta have the soft skills to get into good companies. And if you don't, they're gonna know right away. So you gotta be very, very careful. What else we got?
So you mentioned surrounding yourself with people who have greater expertise in this area. What have you looked for since then? I know you mentioned legal expertise a lot. What are the particular challenges that you faced when first entering your company with legal issues?
Well, I knew right away that I couldn't do it by myself. I did all the technical stuff myself. I Googled stuff, but Steve Jobs didn't. He didn't invent the telephone. He didn't invent the cell phone. But what he did is he surrounded himself with people that were better than him when it came to the technology. He was just a great marketer. you know? And so what I started doing is, I started asking CEOs of successful multi-million-dollar companies, what do you do? How did you get to this place? And you won't believe it, man. They'll be like, oh, here's what I did. They're so excited to tell you, hey, here was my path. You know, and you take these little bits and pieces and you learn from them. And that's what I did. You know, in the industry, there's a lot of successful software companies out there and hardware companies, and that's what I started doing, just asking questions. You know, people will bend over backwards to help you succeed. So, but you surround yourself with people, try to surround yourself with people smarter than you. You know, I mean, like I said, no college education, but I knew what I wanted. I knew what I wanted my company to look like, and I put the people in place. I got, you know, a VP of tech services. I got a VP of sales. I got a VP of operations. You know, so I started putting those pieces in place, and now we have great collaboration. Because I'm the vision guy. You know, I'm like, hey, here's where I want to be. Can you guys make this happen? You know, so that's what I would recommend. Start asking questions and surround yourself with positive people. You know, because there's a lot of negativity in this world. You know, and you surround yourself with positive people, you have no choice but to go in the right direction. You know, so.
So what's the process between like first getting like contact with a client and like sealing the deal with them?
Well, sometimes, like with us, it could take 2-3 months to close a deal. Because when I close a deal, it's like, you know, it could be $10,000 a month up to $50,000 a month. So what happens is on the client side, you know, there's a lot of process. We got to do scans of the network. We got to figure out who the people are. We got to ask. We got to do a lot of interviewing. It could take 2 months. You know, the typical, you know, closing a deal. Like right now, I got, you know, 2 of my guys at a prospect right now doing a walkthrough, interviewing end users on, hey, what are your challenges? What's going on? So that way we take that information back, we create a proposal, and then we present it to them. And but yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of money on that one, so it's a long process. It's not like just, hey, I'm going to sell you this widget. You know, it's a long process, but we have a team in place to help with that. What else you guys got?
What helped you grow the most, both in terms of company size and also like expertise and I guess also passion?
I read a lot of business books. You know, I read a lot of business books on, you know, what are some of the failures from some of these big companies? What did they do? You know, and you know, we're still learning. There's a lot of things. Like my wife just got back from Orlando. She was in Orlando for 5 days for one of the biggest IT conferences in the country. And so you know, she goes there. She interacts with everybody, sees what's new coming down the pipe, and then she brings it back and she said, hey, here's what I found out. And then what we do is we vet it, we evaluate it as a team, and we you know, we go through that process. But listen, business books, they're huge. I mean, because you gain a lot of insight on, let's not go down this road, you know, or hey, this is the way I want to do things. So definitely good.
Do you have any recommendations for business books?
Right now, we're doing Traction. It's like a business process because as we grow, we have to scale with our client base. You know, we're a different company than when we were 4 years old compared to when we are 18 years old. So there's a lot of processes and procedures that we're gaining insight on how to do this stuff through Traction. You know, and but there's you know, The Go-Giver, you know, is a great book. It's not so much like a business book, but as a, you know, reality check on how to interact with people. You know, I'm a firm believer is, you know, I'm more of a giver than a taker. You know, I'd rather give the education and give you know, some insight on some of the challenges, because what happens is it comes back to you. You know, so if you're a person that's not a taker, you know, and you're trying to help somebody else, it's going to come back to you, you know, and my life has been a reflection of that, you know. I try to give back to the community. I mean, when I started the company, I didn't even get a paycheck. I paid my people before I got paid, you know, and I had 2 babies and a wife, but I'd rather have, you know, somebody out there doing what they need to do, and I can lift them up, you know, and that's part of my goal today, is just to help my team. There's a lot of challenges. You know, at this point now, it's not so much a tech problem anymore, it's a people problem. People have things, you know, and what I try to do is I try to help, you know, because we do life together. We're at the office 8 hours a day. You do more time with the people that you work with than you do with the people that you live with at home, your family. So my goal is to make it easy. That's why I bought it. I didn't buy a building for me. I bought the building for my employees. You know, I want them to have a nice, comfortable place to come to work and enjoy it. They wake up in the morning and go, man, I love this. You know, that's huge. So, good stuff.
So before this building, were your employees working remotely?
Yeah, they're all working remote. We were in a building downtown Lake Worth, and we were there for 7 years. And we had an opportunity during COVID to buy a building. And we were looking for a while, but you know, the opportunity came up, and I've never done it before. It's another thing. You know, it's just like starting a company. Now I'm buying real estate, you know, $1 million building. Never done it before. But what I did is I surrounded myself with, you know, a good general contractor, an architect, and I went down that road. And now here we are. We're getting ready to move in next week. You know, it's been a year-long process, but there's been some speed bumps. But you know, well, am I going to do things differently when I buy my next building? Yes, absolutely. But it's a learning experience. It's like life, you know.
So with that, you've hinted at a couple challenges that you face, but what would you say is one of the biggest challenges you face as an entrepreneur, and how have you overcome that?
One of the biggest challenges as an entrepreneur. I would say people. People are very, you know, come from different backgrounds. They come from, you know, different walks of life, and trying to accommodate people because of some of the challenges they have at home or from their backgrounds. You know, that's one of the biggest things that I find is that it's a challenge, because you know, I'm not a kind of, you know, I'm not a, you know, you're under my thumb, I pay you a paycheck and you need to be here and do what I tell you to do. We try to be flexible with people's time and things, and sometimes it's very, very hard, but like some challenges come up and you're just like, how do I deal with this, you know? Because it has been. It's like, we love technology, we do technology, but people can be an issue, you know, but they're our biggest asset. So that's why I'm willing to give, you know, as much of my time as I can to them, because our people are our biggest asset. It's not software, it's not hardware, you know, it's our people that make the difference. So. Whoa. What else we got?
If you could go back, would you have rather gone the formal education of business or computer science?
What's that?
Which was easier to learn on your own, business or computer science, like on the IT?
You know, you know, the technology, I just had a passion for it. I loved it. But if I could have gotten more business stuff, because you could take business, like a business degree, and you could do anything with it. You could run anything. Like, if I were to sell my company, I can go run any company as a CEO. Because there's checks and balances with stuff. You know, if you get your business degree, but you have a passion for technology, whatever it might be, you can always do that stuff. But business, you know, there's so many ins and outs of that. I wish I would have had more of it, but that's what I'm self-educated. You know, that's what I did. I read business books, and I just implemented a lot of the things that I read. So definitely going the business route is the way to go.
Would you go back to school?
When I go back to school, it's so funny because, you know, I talked to my wife about this. She's like, I want to go back to school. And I'm like, but you could, if we sold the company, why would you go, you know, why would you go to school? But it becomes a personal thing. You know, me personally, I would rather spend my time other places because technically I can go get it, you know, if I sold my company, nobody's ever going to go, hey, where did you get your degree? You know, because I come with a lot of experience. You know, I did this from the ground up. You know, people want that. You know, so I don't think people are going to say, hey, you don't have a degree, I don't think we're going to take you. You know, just because of my experience. Now, I would never say, hey, don't go to school. If you want to go to school, go to school. But right now I've got a student that works for me, and he's on the fence. He's like, man, I'm like, listen, sky's the limit, man. You could do over $100,000 working here. Or you can go to school, go into debt. Hopefully you can come back if there's an opening, and then go down that road. But you'll have a degree. I've never interviewed anybody and said, what kind of degree do you have? The main thing is, do you fit? Do you fit our culture? Do you fit? Do you have some technical background? You know, because if you can learn, you know, that's the big thing. So, and he's on the fence. He's like, man, I got a great opportunity here. Why would I leave to go into debt for college, unless it's a personal thing? So it just depends on the individual. I would never tell somebody not to do it. Me and my wife we have kind of like, we're like this when it comes to, hey, what's Colin gonna do? You know? She's like, he needs to go to school. And I'm like, does he? You know? So it really just depends. You have a question?
Yeah. IT is such a broad classification of technological whatever. But what would you say your company specializes in? And if they'd be, would you be open to the idea of expanding the company to different categories of technology and IT?
We want to stay small because when you know, I've got 25 employees now. If I can stay at 25, the more margin, the more stuff I get to do for my employees. More parties, more stuff that we can do for them if I can stay small through technology. But there's always room to grow in the size. We struggle. Beans and rice and beans, and you know, that's what we did because I would never say, sorry, you're not gonna get your paycheck this week. You know, it was like my worst nightmare. So sometimes me and my wife just stayed home and ate ramen noodles, you know. But we built the company up now where now we're starting to see the fruits of our labor, you know, and now it's because of the perseverance that we had. We knew where we wanted to be, and here we are. We're finally here. We're going to be a totally different company 5 years from now, you know. So, but it's hard, and if you're willing to go through that, you know, you can't just expect to walk out of it unless you're a lawyer or a doctor coming out of college. It's you know, it's not like that. You know, people think that I'm gonna be an entrepreneur and I'm gonna make $1 million next month. Yeah, it's not like that. It's school of hard knocks. Very, very difficult. So, unless you're like Facebook, you know. So, you have a question?
On the founding of a company, there's a lot of, I'd assume there'd be a lot of legal and tax filings you'd have to go through. How was that process when you first founded the company?
We've had the same accountant for 12 years now, so she knows it. She saw us when we were like barely scraping by, going, you might have to close your doors. Now she sees the other side going, oh my gosh, you guys are killing it, you know? So, but tax laws change. See, that's another business book, tax laws. What can I do differently to kind of shield from those taxes, you know? And I bring it to my accountant and say, hey, have you heard of this? You know? Like, you know, I just did, you know, I contribute to my traditional IRA, you know, but then I heard that, you know, of this thing where I can actually sell, you know, because the economy's so bad, I could sell some of my stocks that are in there and then save on some of the taxes, you know. So they're like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. So I got my investment company, I got my tax company, and I got them together. We did a call and said, hey, this, you know, strategic, you know. And that's a lot of things too, you know, you start to get strategic with this by the teams that you surround yourself with, you know, so a lot of education. You have another question? No? Yeah. Oh, you have another question.
I could ask it.
I love the questions, I mean,
Do you
I'm
want
open.
your son to like bring on the legacy?
He's been a challenge, you know, you hear of nepotism and, you know, kids working for their parents and everything, and it's a hard thing for me because I want the best for my kids, you know, but they kind of get over it. You know, my son kind of gets over. I mean, the other day he's making, you know, eggs and bacon at 9:30. I'm going, everybody else is working. Why are you making breakfast at 9:30 in the morning? You know, it's just those weird things that drive me crazy. I fired him, but then my wife brought him back. So I'm like, you know, but it's one of those things that you know, he's my son. I want the best for him. That's why I don't think he'll stay in it. He's learning a lot of the business processes. You know, he's talking about maybe going to be like a civil engineer or structural engineer. That's why he wants to go away to college and learn that stuff. But it's the business side that he really likes. He likes interacting with the clients and learning the business side of things. So, like I said, back to that question of which way would you go, technology or business? And that's what he's doing. He's learning that business side of things. But he'll be able to apply it whatever he does. Whether he comes back to work for us 5 years from now after he goes to college, or, you know, wherever he goes. Good stuff.
All right, so as we conclude, my favorite question to ask at the end is if you could go back and talk to your high school self, you're in the room with a bunch of high school students, what advice would you give?
Well, I didn't have social media. You know, when we were in school, like, you know, rotary phones, and, you know, we didn't have any social media. So, but if I did have social media, you guys have a digital footprint. You know, when we do interviews, we go to their Facebook, we go to their Snapchat, we find them online. And I'll tell you, some of the stuff that we see out there is like, I don't want this associated with my company. You need to be very, very careful because once it's out there forever. You might think that you deleted it, but it's not deleted. So if I had social media when I was in high school, this more applies to you guys, because it's crazy, the stuff that's out there.
What's your red flag?
What's that?
Your red flags, like, if you see something, you're like, oh, we don't want it.
It depends. It depends on what it is. I mean, like the political atmosphere right now is crazy. You got the nation's divided, you know, and we'll see stuff out there that's just off the wall, and it's like, wait a second, do I want to bring this into, because we have to be careful of how we talk to them, or if, how they're going to talk to us or how they're going to interact with us. So when you see stuff out there, we won't even introduce them into our company just by some of the things that we see, and it'll be a consensus of with our management team. Hey, look at this Facebook. Are you kidding me? So be very careful, because that stuff will stick with you. It'll be job affecting. So be very careful with that. That's all I got, guys.
All right, can we give Mr. Pizzo a round of applause?